Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Head, a Star Wars podcast. So, looks like we have got the Bad Batch episode 11. That's right, episode 11 was released this past Friday, and we're going to review that right now.
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. So, as you can see, I am actually joining you guys from Chicago. That's right, I got a job in Chicago right now that we're doing, Chicago Auto Show, so we're getting ready for that. But hey, I couldn't let a week go by without doing our usual reviews and stuff like that. I mean, Friday we're going to be doing the High Republic. So I thought, hey, we got to get the Bad Batch in there. And this was a really cool episode.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
What were your thoughts?
Overall,
though.
Overall, yeah. My overall thoughts was, once again, another excellent episode. Once again, it expands the scope of what we're seeing is going on in the galaxy during this time with the Empire, and how they're just systematically going through these different planets and trying to establish control and everything like that. I like the fact that even though this is the Bad Batch, we didn't see that much of them in this. And some people had a problem with that, but personally, I didn't. I think that this was a really cool episode. I think we got a chance to revisit some of our favorite characters from other things. So, and the story was really phenomenal. So, I was all about it.
Yeah, I agree in the sense of I was really shocked at how little of the Bad Batch we really saw in this episode. But when you really stop and think about it, this is what I would call more of a world building episode. This was not so much a character focused episode like what we've been getting for maybe the last 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. But this is more like, okay, we got to show what's going on around you. We have to show here's what's happening. Here's basically what's happening in the world at large, not just on particular planets or maybe with a particular group, but a little bit more of a macro view of this universe so you can better paint the Bad Batch's place in it. So actually, from that standpoint, I think it was a really critical episode for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a world building one thing. Like you said, we got a chance to have some levity, with Omega and and Hera, and there's a lot of different things. Saw some familiar faces, so that was cool. Yeah. I like the position everybody. It's kind of left us with a cliffhanger too, a little bit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was really good, man. I can't say enough about this.
Yeah, and of course, now we could get into this a little bit. I think that one of the cool things was they're starting to tie in a lot of the other series. Mm-hmm. For a while, they've been tying in the Clone Wars. Now they're starting to tie in Rebels and in fact, they're actually bridging both because on one hand, you're getting a little bit of more of Cham Syndulla's backstory, mm-hmm. more than what we even got in Rebels. And then also, he popped up in one of the novels, too. I'm trying to remember which one of them it was, but people were actually having an issue because the way he was characterized in Rebels was different than the way he was in the novel.
Right.
And so they had to try to reverse that a little bit, But basically, the important part is we also got a little bit more of an origin story about Hera. So we're going to pretty much go through this, step by step. I mean, not in too much in depth here because we just want to really talk about the episode more than recite it. Mm-hmm. But why don't you start to take us through some of the key points of this thing, and let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, okay, so we'll kind of kick this thing off where we're kind of once again at this, big address that's supposed to be going on, where you got Senator Taft out there. He's all trying to win the voices of the people, and of course, they have their own freedom fighters. We see Crosshair once again, in the shadows, playing his shady role, looking out for the best interests of the Empire. And the whole purpose of this right now is once again, the Empire is trying to, they're on Ryloth, and they're really just trying to disarm them and really want them to kind of lay down their arms. The war is over. We coming to bring peace. We're trying to bring this new factory in here to give you guys new jobs and things like that. So once again, as you often, make reference to, this is kind of definitely like a Nazi type thing, right? And so we kind of see this regime keeps trying to kind of push things. However, there are some people in the upper echelon of the Ryloth hierarchy who are really not feeling the empire. They always feel like there's something that they're not telling them. And, that seed is constantly being spread, especially with Cham Syndulla's, brother, who really was kind of like, the spearhead on that. And so we see that how that's kind of, affecting things. But we also get a chance to see how Cham Syndulla's influence, how powerful that is for the people of Ryloth. And Taft tried to go out there and make this great grandiose speech, and they didn't want to hear from him. They're like, no, he's not the voice we want. We want Syndulla. And then so Cham got up there, and you can even tell that he's still kind of unsteady. He's trying to buy all the way into this, and he's trying to really give them an honest shake, but you can tell just in the way he's hesitant to do some things sometimes that he's not fully committed.
Oh, yeah, you could tell that he's not 100% trusting of the Empire either. And I think what it is, where people are really having this tug of war with this, is that in the back of their minds, they're thinking, well, this was a republic, basically. They're the good guys, right? I mean, surely they keep going back to the way the republic was, and they're trying to give the Empire the same credibility that they gave the Republic, but they can also see that, these guys are operating a little bit on two different regimes here. They have different attitudes, and you can tell that once again, it's the typical fascist motif of we're going to trade a little bit of our freedom for safety and security and prosperity. But the question is, how much of that do you have to trade in order to get that? And so, yeah, you have the people of Ryloth that are, on one hand, very distrustful of it. Syndulla then chimes in and basically gives his whole speech too. And now they're willing to give him a little bit more. They're willing to give it a chance. Because basically his whole point is like, look, we fought side by side with these guys. And that's why it was a little weird, because you're starting to see the transition from clone trooper to stormtrooper now. Because their whole mission has changed. And you can definitely see that by the way that they're acting and everything else. And of course you had the one guy, you seemed like he was one of the more head clones, and he was basically like, look, man, I don't really want to do this, but
that
when you had to arrest him, that comes a little bit later, but it just shows you that once again, it's not just from the Bad Batch's point of view. You're actually seeing these clones struggling with this whole thing. They're basically, on one hand, they're obeying orders. Like, look, this is the same government that we've been following the whole time. The mission's changed a little bit maybe, but you know what I mean? And that's kind of where I think that they're starting to struggle, because they're seeing some of the actions that they're doing, and they're like, I'm not really into this. But orders are orders.
As Crosshair would say. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that we're looking at this, and the people of Ryloth are kind of like, all right, they don't trust everything. And like you said, Cham is like, well, this is what we asked for. We wanted peace. Now that we have it, why are we crying and squawking about this regime that's bringing us peace now? But then now they're trying to set up these different things, and it doesn't seem like it's, all the way on the up and up. And especially, Cham's wife doesn't, feel that way. And then the uncle enlists Hera to actually go do some spying along with, a rebel's favorite, Chopper. So, that was cool to see,
it
Chopper.
Was cool. And, I have to comment too on this, because his animation was way better. I mean, you can tell that with each successive series, there's been a big step up in the animation style. And I think it was in the way that Chopper was done. You could just tell that there's been advances in the animation between Rebels and the Bad Batch. So that was cool.
Yeah, definitely. So little Hera and Chopper go on this little mission, and this is where you kind of see this is kind of cool. You got a backstory into her always wanting to be a pilot. So we know who she becomes later, in Rebels, but to see her, this is like this kind of dreamy-eyed kid who's like dreams of flying and has all these big aspirations, but she eventually gets caught by I guess you can call them clone troopers still, somewhat. So they got caught by the clone troopers, and the head trooper, goes up to Cham Syndulla, and once again he's like, "Look, we're friends, we're cool. Look, technically I'm supposed to report this. I'm not going to say anything this time, but if it happens again, I'm going to have to say something." So he's trying to be cool about this, and that's the thing too. It's like these clones that we've kind of grown to love in from the Clone Wars. These guys they still kind of have hearts, but they're still kind of in this weird space though, where even they, like you said, are starting to kind of look at things like, is this really okay? It's and they still have a heart. They still have respect for certain people, and things like that. And so that was really awesome to see.
Well, that's where I think that you really, not only are you seeing the transition in their heads, but even the way that the mission is changing, they're really starting to emphasize that a little bit. And I really think that that's kind of cool, because to me, that was one of the things that I thought was, well, at least what I was hoping would be a part of this series. And that is, are you going to show us the transition from clone troopers to stormtroopers and the struggle that these guys are going to have? Because first of all, they're going to be slowly replaced with just normal,
citizens,
individuals. Yeah, exactly. So on one hand, you basically have the clone troopers are looking at these incoming stormtroopers, and they're starting to probably try to figure out what their place in the universe is. But in addition to that, you also just have their overall mission, and the fact that they're being asked to do some things that they know is probably not 100% correct or right or even beneficial. So I'm really glad that they're taking time, once again, like I said, to do a little bit of world building and to give us some of that.
Mm-hmm. So then, we take off to this kind of little hideaway where Cham's brother is kind of runs into Hera, and they're like, okay, well, you want to come on this mission with us? And she's like, no, I probably should stay here, because she's probably like, I don't want to get in trouble again. But then, he knows how to get her attention. It's like, well, I was going to let you fly, but I guess I have to wait. So he knew that was going to be the thing that's going to, make her bite. So of course she joins him on the ship, and they're going on the supply run. It's like, well, it's no crazy mission, just going to get some stuff, and we'll be right back. Now, Crosshair has always kind of had his eye on the brother. And so when the ship takes off, he tags the ship. And the ship goes off and reaches like this little moon type planet, where this is when they run into the Bad Batch. They meet up. That's their contact. And now Hera is meeting up with the Bad Batch and Omega. And Omega and Hera kind of form a quasi little friendship. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was great. First of all, once again, kudos to them for handling this correctly, because it could have turned into some silly, stupid type of a thing. But it was actually, once again, it had a lot of character depth. It was done realistically, I thought, and it was understated. It wasn't so obnoxiously done or in your face. And it was something that you brought up earlier that I thought was actually a really good point. Well, I should say you alluded to this, and that is that basically what we're seeing with Hera is more like what we saw with Ahsoka and what we were seeing with Omega. It's kind of like their development, how they went from just basically this idealistic kid and grown into the person that they become.
Right.
So I thought that was really cool. The other thing that I thought was cool about this particular scene is that now the Bad Batch, it's almost like the other side of the coin. Usually we follow the Bad Batch around, and then they're meeting up with various people.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're with the Syndullas, and then the Bad Batch are like the people that they're meeting up with. So it's almost like they they flipped everything around.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And I want to point out, too, that the fact that we saw Omega lets us know that she won that match last time.
That's a good point.
So, but I did like the fact that, and once again, the growth of Omega, before she was like, she's like, wow, I've never seen the ship like that. What kind of ship is it? Omega knows the stuff. And then she wants to go on board. But she asked Hunter, like, hey, Hunter, is it cool? Hunter gives it okay. She's like, all right, but I'm watching you, no funny business. Like, you could tell Omega's growing up. She's really trying to take this seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But she got a chance to bond with Hera on the ship, talking about, the different parts of the ship. And of course, showing her favorite, which I thought was hilarious. She's like, well, we're not like being chased or shooting at people. This is my room, so I thought that was kind of hilarious. So.
Yeah, because Hera has this more idealistic view of what it means to fly or be a pilot or whatever, whereas Omega's thing is a little bit more utilitarian. I mean, flying is just part of getting from one. Omega's a little bit more about the destinations, I think.
Yeah, it's the mission, it's the job. Like, okay, what do we need to do to get the job done? Whereas, like, Hera's more, like you said, idealistic, more dreamy eyed. Just, flying is such an experience that you should just take in. And so that's why it was so hilarious when, she's teaching Omega. They're both teaching each other things, which I thought was really nice. And then afterwards, they get off the ship and Omega goes up to Tech. It's like, did you know that, flying is a feeling? And Tech is like, what are you talking about? What feeling? That was just so like priceless.
That was one of my favorite lines in the episode, actually, because to me, that was so dead on.
Yep.
And once again, it's
Star Wars
really
humor.
Juxtaposes the difference between how Hera feels about it, how Omega feels about it. And like you said, it's Star Wars humor. This is actual Star Wars humor. It's not what we would classify as Marvel humor or anything like that. And I think that that's a really important distinction. And I'm glad to see that they're adhering to that. Like I said, I actually think that this series really does more things right in a lot of ways than any of the other ones do. Now, definitely. People might like the Clone Wars better. People might like Rebels better. But I mean, as far as how they characterize Star Wars and what they do with it and how they're handling the various plot lines and stuff like that, yeah, I think it's probably one of the best examples.
Yeah. I really think that this group, I think all the shows are great in their own respective right. And I think that's what's cool about them is you can enjoy them for what they are. And that's what I really enjoy about the franchise, including the Bad Batch. I can add that to the list now. So after they've kind of, decided to part ways, the Syndulas basically kind of go back to Ryloth, and where they are shot down by Crosshair, and then now they're in a bit of a situation. And so word gets back to, of course, Cham that they're in trouble. Hera's there, and she's going to be basically charged with treason. And
I gotta say this. I felt so bad for her because it wasn't like they said that we're going on some dangerous mission or anything. They just basically said, look, we're just going to go do the supply run. It's going to be cool. And now she's essentially helping to bring down the whole Syndulla family because she went on this run, which of course, Tam didn't stop her or anything like that. But at the same time, I just felt so bad for her because this is one time that she really wasn't trying to be part of some crazy mission. She was just like, oh, spy run. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we do get a chance to see her fly, which was cool. A young Hera flying the ship and everything like that. And we all, of course, know, for those of us who are avid watchers of Rebels, we know kind of who she becomes. So after they've been shot down, Cham is informed that, Hera's basically going to be charged with treason. And so now they kind of formulate this whole plan to kind of rescue her. And, off they go. And so now you're in this whole battle. And they kind of came up with this whole strategy on how to get him. But what was really cool was that, when it comes down to when they actually get the drop on the Imperial and Taft and the rest of the convoy, you know, I'm thinking like, oh, sweet, all is one, you know, and then, you know, the double cross comes where you see, you know, the Imperial give the nod to Crosshair, and he totally takes out Taft, just like picks him off.
And that was cool. Because to be honest, I really didn't expect it. And what did he say? Something like, thank you for your service or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so grim. And
yeah, it was kind of like one of those, almost like an Arnold Schwarzenegger line or something.
It was. And the thing that I really like is that this show is not afraid to go there. It's not afraid to get a little bit dark and a little bit sinister. I would actually characterize the show at times as very sinister.
Yes, the great word for it. Yeah, man. I mean, that was just shocking. And then you kind of see like, all right, how the tables kind of flip on them. And now the Syndulla family basically are all like now, you know, wrapped up in custody. And, you know, now we're at a point now where it's like, okay, of course, I know how this is going to end. Hera gets away, you know, with Chopper. The Bad Batch 9 times out of 10 for the next episode is going to have to come and rescue the Syndulla family and everything like that. So we pretty much kind of can see how that's going to happen. But I really enjoyed the way everything played out. We didn't need the Bad Batch because, like you said, it was a world building thing. You kind of have to establish certain things, and you may not be able to use the Bad Batch at all times, but you still want to give them a presence there. And this is what they did in the show.
Yeah, and again, I think that was something that they did really well. I think it's something that was important to do. And I also I'm glad they did this more on episode 11 and not, 14 or something like that, because out of the 16 episodes that they're going to have, because one of the things I've often said, and this is one of the things that I think will determine whether something is filler or not, it's not just the plot of the episode, it's also when you place that episode. If you place some of these episodes that you consider filler, maybe a little bit more towards later in the beginning or later in the middle, I think would be the sweet spot. Because the problem is, if you put it too close to the beginning, like this is a complaint that people have had about The Mandalorian season 2, was they had this tremendous opening season premiere with the whole Boba Fett storyline and Cobb Vanth and all that, and then the next episode's like Frog Lady with her eggs and they're escaping a spider or something. Now, granted, you could actually look at the like episode 2, 3, and 4, whatever, is one big one. But still, you talk about bringing the momentum down.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will, and I'm going to borrow your word because I think it's so applicable here, but I think what makes it really, really good for us, especially in Bad Batch, and I would love to see them do more of this in other series, is that instead of having quote unquote filler episodes, have world building episodes.
Yes.
And so give us something that relates to the situation, that's going to expand the drama versus just a side quest that's no one cares about, like you said, like the whole Frog Lady thing.
Sure, because what it is you're trying to always include the main characters in that instance. Whereas what they did with the Bad Batch in this episode was they gave you an episode that was a little bit more about the environment and the other characters versus, okay, let's have the Bad Batch go on yet another side mission for Sid or something.
Right.
And I think that was very important. And that's something that they did very successfully, I thought. And I like that too. I wish they would do more world building episodes. But if you do have to put a filler episode in, if you do it a little bit later in the beginning, because in the beginning of any show, whether it's basically season 1 or even if it's 2, 3, 4 or whatever, like the show's been established, you're still trying to establish that season. And it would just be so horrible to basically drop, you get this momentum going with maybe the first episode or 2, and then you give us a filler. It's like, no, that's not a good idea. If you give it to us a little bit later, once you firmly establish the world, then it's cool. But really where I think it would be best is if you do it a little bit past the middle. Because the middle is usually when a really big thing happens, some dramatic event, some big thing that's going to then set up the second half of that season. So if you do an episode or two that basically sets that up, and then you give us a filler episode, I think it's okay. But like you said, if they actually do more of a world building episode, I think that's even better.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
So how would you, I don't know if we've actually ever given real ratings on these episodes, but if you did have to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you going to put it?
I'd probably give it like a 8.5, 9.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking too. I mean, I'm not trying to back out. Like, yeah, that sounds good. But I think both of us are pretty much on point about how we really feel about this episode, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. I think it told a really great story. I think it introduced some more characters. It expanded the world. It shows you the gravity of the situation. It sets up for the next episode perfectly. We got some levity in this. We got some familiar faces. So I mean, it once again, it hit all the notes, like we've said before in a lot of different shows, where it gave us all the different things that makes up Star Wars. And this is once again, it's a testament to Dave Filoni, as we can't say enough about once someone truly understands Star Wars, you know how to put the pieces of the puzzle together, because as long as you have these mechanisms, it'll always work.
Sure, and storytelling is always going to be the key.
Yep.
No matter what. You could put in a bunch of crazy characters with their outlandish costumes or whatever. You can get famous actors to come in and do the voices. Doesn't matter. And I'm talking about animated. Well, really, this is true for anything. But just focusing on the animated series for a minute, I think that above all, you have to have the storytelling component in there. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of effects and cool characters. And this is a mistake that they made with the films, right? I mean, look at how they wasted Phasma and stuff like that. They bring in these really cool characters and they don't do anything with them.
Absolutely. Finn, Rose. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
Whereas then you take somebody like Cad Bane. I mean, granted, we've already been introduced to him in another series. Mm-hmm. But he's had a cameo basically in a couple of different episodes, but they didn't waste him. And they gave him something significant to do. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing that you have to do if you're going to bring in these characters or if you're going to create characters. And if you just frame it around a really good story, which they obviously have done. Now, I don't know how many seasons the Bad Batch is going to go, but it's obvious that they frame this series out a little bit. So
yeah. I don't
know about you. I'm really looking forward to the next episode now.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see how the Bad Batch is going to, break them out, and what's going to be the consequence of that, and are they going to run it across here in this particular episode? Yes. Because he's kind of been there, so you got to wonder how that's going to play out. So yeah.
So now, if you guys hopefully are looking forward to our next episode, you're going to want to watch us this Friday at 8:00. I promise, Eastern time. I'm a little late because this whole like work trip that I've had to do kind of put a little bit of a kink in the plans, but hey, we still got on here, so that's cool. But yeah, Friday we're going to be on at 8. We're going to review the High Republic issue number 5, and then a week from today, we're going to be back on here with the next episode of the Bad Batch, which I think is actually going to really complement this episode nicely.
Definitely.
All right, so with that, hopefully you guys enjoyed our, brief, but very, very informative episode and review on the Bad Batch. Like I said, don't forget to subscribe to us at YouTube and Twitch, and you can hit us up on our social media at HeadToHeadSW, and that'll be on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And so I think that's going to wrap it up for us for tonight. So until Friday, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.